About 830 million people worldwide live with diabetes, yet one threat may be sitting inside a fruit bowl. It looks fresh. It may even have been recommended as a healthier choice. But eaten in the wrong form, portion or time, that fruit can send glucose climbing before breakfast is over. The danger is not fruit itself. The danger is believing every fruit affects the body in the same way. That mistake rarely causes a warning. It works in smaller moments. A reading that rises higher than expected, hunger returning too soon, another large serving, because the first seemed harmless. Day after day, those choices can make blood sugar harder to manage. Over time, poorly controlled diabetes can affect the blood vessels, kidneys, nerves, eyes, and heart. What looks like a breakfast decision may become part of a pattern. Jane never thought breakfast was the problem. At 68, she had removed pastries, stopped adding sugar to tea, and filled her kitchen with fruit. Every morning, she poured orange juice into a glass, dropped a banana into a blender, added mango, berries, and honey, then drank the mixture before her morning walk. The colors looked healthy, the ingredients sounded clean. Her glucose monitor told a different story. Before 8 o'clock, Jane's number began to rise. By 9, the line on her monitor had climbed more sharply than after many cooked meals. She blamed stress, then sleep, then the meter. What she did not suspect was the breakfast praised by friends as perfect for diabetes. Nothing in that glass looked dangerous. That was why the pattern continued. Dr. Evelyne Emma examined the meal differently. She did not label fruit as poison, and she did not promise that fruit could replace medication. She looked at the servings hidden inside the drink, the speed at which Jane consumed them, the stopping point that chewing normally provides, and the honey added to an already carbohydrate-rich meal. The answer was not to fear fruit. It was to understand it. 5 fruits will soon be ranked from helpful to most useful for a diabetes-friendly eating plan. Number 5 is found in almost every market. Number 4 is often turned into a drink that behaves differently from the whole fruit. Number 3 is small, sharp, and underestimated. Number 2 will surprise viewers because many people insist it is a vegetable. Number 1 has impressive research behind its reputation, but not for the reason repeated in viral videos. First, 3 terms decide whether the list makes sense. The first is carbohydrate load, the total amount of carbohydrate eaten at one time. A food can have a respectable reputation and still cause a large rise when several servings are combined. A small fruit and a blender packed with 4 fruits are not the same event inside the body. The second term is food matrix. That means the fruit's natural structure: skin, pulp, cell walls, seeds, water, and fiber held together. Chewing intact fruit slows the eating process and creates a clear portion. Juicing removes much of the fiber. Blending may retain fiber, but it can make several portions easy to drink quickly. The machine is not always the main problem. The recipe size often is. The third term is post-meal glucose excursion. That is the distance blood glucose travels upward after eating and how long it remains elevated. One person may respond differently from another because medication, sleep, activity, portion size, and the rest of the meal all matter. This is why a fruit praised online may produce an unexpected reading in a real kitchen. Hi viewers, has a healthy breakfast ever raised your blood sugar unexpectedly? Yes or no? Jane's answer would have been yes. She had followed the headline, but missed the details. Fruit contains carbohydrate, so it still counts as part of a diabetes meal plan. Whole fruit can provide fiber, vitamins, minerals, and plant compounds, but natural does not mean unlimited. A small piece of whole fruit, or roughly half a cup of many fruits, may contain about 15 grams of carbohydrate. Double the portion, and the calculation changes. Here is the reversal. A sweeter fruit in a controlled serving may fit better than a supposedly safer fruit eaten from a large bowl. A whole orange may be easier to measure than a glass containing juice from several oranges. A small apple may create a gentler meal than an oversized smoothie carrying banana, mango, berries, honey, and sweetened yogurt. The name matters, the form and portion may matter more. Dr. Evelyne Emma's ranking will not call any fruit a cure. It will reveal which 5 choices are easier to portion, richer in useful structure, and less likely to turn one snack into several hidden carbohydrate servings. It will also expose the habit that causes many people to lose the benefit before the fruit reaches the plate. Because the first fruit on the list looks almost too ordinary to matter. Yet one small detail, something many people peel away and discard, changes the entire recommendation. And once that detail is understood, Jane's morning mistake becomes impossible to ignore. The ordinary fruit waiting at number 5 was the apple. It rarely creates excitement. It carries no exotic name, expensive label, or promise of instant healing. That simplicity is why many people overlook it. Yet the small detail hinted at earlier is the part most often cut away: the skin. An apple appears safe because it arrives in its own natural package. There is a beginning, an end, and a visible portion. It must be held, bitten, and chewed. Those steps create time. They also make it harder to consume 3 or 4 apples without noticing, unlike drinking their juice from one large bottle. The skin and the flesh beneath it contain fiber, including soluble fiber known as pectin. Fiber does not make the apple free of carbohydrate, and it cannot erase a glucose rise. What it can do is support slower digestion and greater fullness than a sweet drink that disappears in minutes. The American Diabetes Association advises people counting carbohydrates to watch the serving, because a small whole fruit commonly provides about 15 grams of carbohydrate. That number matters. A small apple may fit comfortably into a planned meal. A very large apple may carry more carbohydrate than expected. The fruit did not suddenly become unhealthy. The serving changed. This is where labels such as natural, fresh, and sugar-free can mislead. Blood glucose responds to the amount eaten, not to comforting words attached to it. Jane had been making a similar mistake. She had stopped eating biscuits with breakfast, then rewarded herself with more fruit because it seemed harmless. One apple became an apple beside a banana. Then both disappeared into a smoothie with mango and honey. Each ingredient looked innocent alone. Together, they formed a much larger carbohydrate load. Dr. Evelyne Emma focused on a rule Jane could remember without carrying a calculator through the kitchen. Keep the fruit visible. A small whole apple, eaten slowly, leaves no mystery about how much was consumed. Apple juice hides several pieces of fruit inside a glass. Sweetened apple drinks can add more sugar. Applesauce may also be eaten quickly, especially when the portion exceeds the serving stated on the container. The practical move was not dramatic. Jane chose one small apple, kept the edible skin on after washing it, and counted it as the fruit portion of the meal. She did not add another fruit simply because the first looked small. She also checked her glucose according to her healthcare team's schedule, allowing the meter to reveal her response, rather than trusting a viral ranking. Then came the first reversal. The peel was not medicine, and removing it did not turn the apple into poison. The loss was subtler, less fiber, less texture, and an easier path toward eating the fruit in a softer, faster form. The lesson was not that every person must eat every peel. The lesson was that processing and portion can quietly change the experience. But number 4 exposed an even larger difference. The orange carries the same name, whether peeled over a plate or poured from a carton. To the eye, both versions come from fruit. To the body, they are not always the same eating event. One whole orange creates resistance. Fingers peel it. Segments separate. Pulp is chewed. A natural stopping point appears when the fruit is gone. Juice removes that boundary. The American Diabetes Association notes that about 1/3 to 1/2 cup of fruit juice may provide roughly 15 grams of carbohydrate. Many household glasses hold several times that volume. The person sees one drink, The body receives multiple servings in a form swallowed rapidly. This does not mean one sip of orange juice ruins diabetes control. It means the serving deserves the same attention as bread, rice, cereal, or another carbohydrate source. A large breakfast glass should not become invisible merely because vitamin C is present. Nutrition can exist beside a glucose problem. Both facts can be true. Jane's glass had never been measured. She filled it by habit, often returning for more while preparing the smoothie. Before eating anything solid, she had already consumed substantial carbohydrate. The juice was not acting alone. It was opening the door for everything that followed. Dr. Evelyne Emma changed the sequence. Jane removed the automatic glass of juice and chose a small whole orange as a measured fruit serving at another meal. She kept the segments intact instead of squeezing them. She paired the meal with protein and non-starchy vegetables, remembering those foods did not cancel the orange's carbohydrate. They helped create a balanced plate. One warning remained. An orange is not a grapefruit. Grapefruit and grapefruit juice can alter how certain medicines are absorbed or broken down. The United States Food and Drug Administration warns that interactions can occur with some statins, some blood pressure medicines, and other drugs, although not every medicine in those categories is affected. A pharmacist must check the exact prescription. Medication should never be stopped because of a fruit video. By the end of the week, Jane's breakfast looked less impressive on camera. No towering smoothie, no glowing jug of juice, just measured food she could identify, chew, and count. Her readings did not become perfect overnight, because fruit is not insulin and one breakfast cannot reverse diabetes. But the mystery was beginning to clear. Apple, whole, visible, and correctly portioned. Orange, eaten, not casually multiplied inside a large glass. 2 fruits down. 3 remained. The next fruit was smaller than both, sharper than either, and often ignored because it lacked the fame of berries. Yet beneath its rough skin was an unusual combination of fiber and natural acids that researchers had examined for its effect on glucose after a meal. And that was not the greatest surprise. The fruit after it was sitting in kitchens everywhere, usually beside salt, onions, and eggs. Many viewers had eaten it for years without once calling it a fruit. Its reveal would force Jane to rethink the meaning of sweetness entirely. The rough-skinned fruit, waiting at number 3, was the kiwi. It did not look powerful. It was small enough to disappear beneath an apple, plain enough to be ignored beside a bright orange, and sharp enough that many people assumed it contained too much sugar. That assumption missed what mattered. A kiwi still contains carbohydrate. It is not a treatment for high glucose, and eating one cannot force a dangerous reading downward. Its advantage begins with scale. One fruit creates a modest, visible portion. There is no giant bowl, no hidden second serving, and no need to turn it into juice. Inside the flesh sits a combination of fiber, water, and organic acids. Those acids help create kiwi's sharp taste, while its fiber contributes to the structure moving through the digestive system. Researchers have examined whether these non-sugar components influence the glucose response when kiwi is eaten with starchy food.
Out the glucose spike,
One randomized crossover investigation reported in Nutrients found that kiwi fruit components could reduce the height of the glycemic response to co-consumed cereal starch. Another controlled study found a lower post-meal glucose response when kiwi replaced an equal amount of carbohydrate from breakfast cereal. The detail is crucial. Kiwi replaced part of another carbohydrate. It was not simply added on top of an already large meal. That distinction changed Jane's thinking. She had treated fruit as a free extra. Breakfast came first. Fruit came second. Juice sat beside both. When every healthy item was added rather than exchanged, the total kept growing. Dr. Evelyne Emma showed her a quieter approach. One kiwi could replace another carbohydrate serving instead of joining several of them. The practical choice was simple. Jane ate one kiwi with a balanced breakfast and watched the total meal, not only the fruit. She did not cover it with sugar. She did not add it to a blender already holding banana and mango. She allowed one fruit to remain one fruit. Then the meter delivered a lesson no ranking could promise in advance. Jane's response was steadier on some mornings and less predictable on others. Sleep, stress, medication timing, and the rest of the plate still mattered. The fruit list was becoming useful, but it was not replacing personal evidence. The pattern repeated across all 5 choices. The fruit seemed safe. The mechanism explained why form and portion mattered. Research offered a clue, not a guarantee. Then the practical fix returned control to the plate. That rhythm was deliberate. It prevented one promising study from becoming a claim and kept Jane focused on decisions she could repeat. Measure the serving. Keep the fruit recognizable. Replace rather than endlessly add. Watch the entire meal. Check the response. Those 5 steps sounded less exciting than a miracle cure, but they were far more useful when morning arrived and the glucose monitor displayed a number. Now came the midpoint. 3 fruits remained in the conversation, but the next reveal changed the meaning of the entire countdown. It was creamy, savory, and usually stored beside vegetables. It contained so little available carbohydrate in an ordinary serving that many people with diabetes never thought to count it as fruit at all. Before that name is revealed, viewers should subscribe for clear explanations that separate useful food choices from miracle promises. They should also leave one simple answer in the comments: sweet fruit or savory fruit. Number 2 was avocado. The reveal sounded like a trick, but botanically, avocado is a fruit. It develops from a flower and contains a seed. Its nutritional pattern, however, is very different from that of mango, pineapple, or banana. Most of its energy comes from fat, while a typical portion supplies fiber and relatively little available carbohydrate. That does not make avocado a glucose-lowering medicine. It means avocado itself is unlikely to create the same post-meal rise as a similar portion of many sweet fruits. In a randomized crossover trial involving overweight or obese adults, meals in which carbohydrate energy was replaced with half or a whole avocado produced lower post-meal glucose and insulin responses than the control meal. Again, one word protects the truth: replaced. The avocado did not erase the meal. A thick layer of avocado on several slices of bread could still accompany a large carbohydrate load. A bowl of avocado dipped beside a large packet of chips could still produce a very different result from avocado served with eggs, fish, beans, or non-starchy vegetables. The fruit could be sensible, while the surrounding meal worked against the goal. There was another limit. Avocado is energy-dense. A person trying to manage body weight cannot assume that low sugar means unlimited portions. Dr. Evelyne Emma suggested a measured amount that fitted Jane's meal plan, rather than turning an entire avocado into a compulsory daily dose. Jane began using a modest portion with vegetables and protein. The meal looked less like a fruit breakfast and more like ordinary food. That was the point. Diabetes management did not require every helpful fruit to taste sweet. But number 1 carried the greatest reputation of all. Blueberries had become the symbol of good fruit for blood sugar. Their dark skin contains anthocyanins, pigments belonging to a wider group of plant compounds called polyphenols. Their small size makes them easy to portion. Their fiber remains present when they are eaten whole. And, unlike juice, the berries must still be seen, measured, and chewed. The research was promising, but the viral version had been stretched beyond recognition. A double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial followed 32 obese, insulin-resistant adults for 6 weeks. Participants receiving blueberry bioactives showed a greater improvement in insulin sensitivity than those receiving placebo. Then came the missing facts. The participants did not have diabetes. The intervention used a standardized blueberry preparation delivered in smoothies. The study measured insulin sensitivity with a laboratory technique, not a dramatic fall in A1C caused by one cheap bowl of berries. It did not prove that blueberries act quickly like medication, and it did not prove that adding them to any breakfast will lower glucose. The study mattered. The exaggeration did not. Dr. Evelyne Emma placed blueberries at number 1 because their portion could be controlled. Their whole fruit structure remained useful, and human research supported further interest in their effect on insulin sensitivity. But she refused to turn evidence into theater. Blueberries could support a sound eating pattern. They could not rescue a breakfast flooded with sweetened cereal, flavored yogurt, syrup, and juice. Jane had made that exact mistake. She believed a handful of berries cancelled everything beneath them. In reality, the berries sat on top of a meal that was already too large for her plan. The helpful ingredient became a decoration rather than a solution. Her new serving was measured. Fresh or unsweetened frozen blueberries could both work. She paired them with plain yogurt or a controlled portion of nuts, depending on her individual plan. She checked labels for added sugar and resisted the urge to pour by eye. One myth also had to be removed. Blending does not magically destroy all fiber. The larger concern is that a smoothie can contain several fruits, sweetened milk, honey, and other additions in a portion that is easy to drink quickly. A blender may preserve fiber while still making excess easier. Kiwi brought fiber and organic acids. Avocado brought low available carbohydrate and unsaturated fat. Blueberries brought anthocyanins and the strongest research story on the list. Yet none of the three could honestly fulfill the promise hidden inside the phrase, lowers blood sugar very fast. No fruit could safely replace insulin, prescribed medication, or urgent medical care. That truth seemed to weaken the countdown. Instead, it created the final twist. Because after Jane ate, there was one simple action that could influence the next glucose curve sooner than changing from one fruit to another. It cost nothing. It required no supplement. And for many people who were medically able to do it, the effect began with movement. What happened in the next 10 minutes would matter more than the color of the fruit left on the plate. The action was a walk, not an exhausting workout, not a punishment for eating, just purposeful movement after the meal, performed only when it was safe for the person doing it. When muscles begin working, they can use circulating glucose for energy. That creates a practical reason why the minutes after eating may matter. A systematic review published in Sports Medicine found that activity performed soon after a meal produced a greater immediate benefit for post-meal glucose than exercising before eating or waiting longer. In a randomized crossover study involving adults with type 2 diabetes, walking for 10 minutes after each main meal improved post-meal glucose control more than completing one 30-minute walk at another time of day. Jane began carefully. She did not chase an intense pace or treat the glucose monitor like a scoreboard. After breakfast, she walked comfortably for 10 minutes. On days when walking outdoors was difficult, she marched gently in place, performed supported sit-to-stands, or moved through the house. The goal was movement, not strain. That small routine also gave her something no miracle claim could offer, a repeatable decision she could test, discuss with her clinician, and adjust without panic again. The change looked almost too small to matter, yet this was the twist the fruit ranking had been building toward. Apple, orange, kiwi, avocado, and blueberries could help Jane construct a more manageable meal. None could act as an emergency treatment. The faster practical influence on the next glucose curve came from what her muscles did after she finished eating. Safety changed the recommendation. Anyone using insulin or medicine that can cause hypoglycemia may experience falling glucose during or after activity. A person with chest discomfort, severe breathlessness, dizziness, an active foot injury, or medical restrictions should not force a walk because a video suggested it. The movement plan must fit the person, the medication, and the advice of the healthcare team. For healthy adults, the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases recommends working toward at least 150 minutes of moderate activity each week, with muscle-strengthening activity on 2 days when possible. Older age does not remove the need for movement. It makes balance, gradual progression, footwear, foot checks, and realistic intensity more important. Jane's long-term plan became larger than breakfast. She broke up long periods of sitting. She protected muscle through age-appropriate resistance exercise. She kept medical appointments for her eyes, kidneys, blood pressure, cholesterol, and feet. She slept on a steadier schedule and took prescribed medication as directed. No single fruit could do all of that work. Her 5 choices now followed clear rules. A small apple stayed whole and visible. An orange was eaten in segments instead of multiplied inside a large glass. 1 kiwi replaced another carbohydrate rather than joining an overloaded meal. Avocado appeared in a measured portion beside vegetables and protein. Blueberries were served fresh or unsweetened frozen, not buried beneath syrup and sweetened cereal. The supporting foods mattered too. Plain Greek yogurt could add protein. A measured portion of nuts could add fat, fiber, and texture. Eggs, fish, beans, or other appropriate protein foods could help form a balanced meal. None of them erased carbohydrate. They simply prevented one fruit from becoming the entire plan. Then Jane stopped asking the wrong question. She no longer asked which fruit would lower her blood sugar very fast. She asked which serving fitted the meal, whether she was eating or drinking it, what else was on the plate, and what her own glucose pattern showed. That shift replaced fear with evidence. The recap was simple. Apple, keep it whole and control the size. Orange, eat the fruit more often than drinking its juice. Kiwi, use a modest serving and replace, rather than pile on, carbohydrate. Avocado, remember that low sugar does not mean unlimited calories. Blueberries, respect the research without turning them into medicine. And after the meal, move safely when medically able. Viewers should share this message with the parent who has become afraid of every piece of fruit, or the friend who believes a giant smoothie cannot raise glucose because it contains no table sugar. Fear can remove nutritious foods. False reassurance can create oversized portions. Good advice must avoid both extremes. One final boundary cannot be softened. Fruit and walking do not replace insulin, prescribed medicine, or urgent care. Repeated readings above a person's target should be discussed with the healthcare team. Severe weakness, confusion, vomiting, unusual breathing, or worsening illness alongside very high glucose requires prompt medical attention. Jane's breakfast had looked healthy from the beginning. What changed was not its color, it was the understanding behind it. The fruit mattered. The serving mattered more. And what happened after the final bite could change the rest of the morning.